Laura Loomer joining me now. Laura, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Laura, I want to get your take here on a lot of things, but I want to start with this Marjorie Taylor Greene fiasco that's going on. You were the first person to call her, as I recall, Marjorie Trader Greene, and now the president's.
That's correct.
You coined it, so let's give credit where it's due. And it kind of took, and then it kind of dropped, and then the president picked up on it. But it's kind of an ugly thing going on. Just give us your whole take on it.
I don't think it's ugly. I think it's great. I think it's great that we start. It's like fall. You know, all the dead leaves got to fall off the tree, right? Everything looks so pretty. Everything looks so nice. Everybody's deceived, and then the leaves turn brown, and then they start to fall off, just like Trump said, right? Marjorie Taylor Brown. So when things start to rot, they turn brown. And we're going into the midterms. And if people maybe they haven't been paying attention, you'll notice that there's a lot of really vitriolic language, right? And I'm not here to police anybody's language. There's a lot of vitriolic posting going on right now that doesn't really seem very organic. Targeting MAGA, targeting President Trump, saying that President Trump has betrayed the base, saying that President Trump is no longer America first, pushing for isolationism. And what I find to be really interesting is all of this rhetoric is being amplified on social media by people like Marjorie Trader Greene, Thomas Massie. And as I'm live with you now, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Trader Greene are currently standing at a press location in Capitol Hill, outside of the Capitol, with Ro Khanna. My D.C. correspondent is right there. He's got it on video. And they are there right now to further continue this Jeffrey Epstein insanity, standing with victims, they say, to falsely accuse President Trump of being a pedophile and a pedophile protector. Now ask yourself, who does this serve going into the midterms? We're less than a year away, John, from the 2026 midterms, and we all know what this means. If President Trump doesn't win the midterms, he is going to be a lame duck president. He's going to be impeached. They're going to try to throw him in jail. They're going to try to throw his supporters in jail. And so I think it's a beautiful thing that what's happening right now. President Trump is exposing these traitors for what they are. Thomas Massie is the congressional contrarian. He always has to have something else to say to prove just how smart he is, or, just how different he is. This is the problem with having libertarians in the Republican Party. This is the problem with a big tent coalition. Remember, I came on your show in 2024, and we argued about this, John. I told you that the big tent coalition was going to prove to be poisonous to the GOP. And everybody wants to be a celebrity. Everybody wants to be a star. And you have these politicians who are more concerned, John, with getting likes and clicks on social media and being podcast stars. Really, they want to all be social media podcast stars, and they're looking for their next payday because Trumpism is coming to an end. Not because Trumpism and MAGA is a failed movement, but because there is nobody, including J.D. Vance, who is going to be the heir to President Trump. I like J.D. Vance. That's not a dig at J.D. Vance. But there is only one President Trump. There is only one President Trump. He's irreplaceable. And we're going to see a very crowded primary, John, going into 2028. But the reality is that nobody in the GOP has what it takes to replace Donald Trump and truly replicate Trumpism. And so what does that mean? That means that you're not going to have President Trump at the top of a ballot anymore. Republicans are going to need to learn, John, how to win and fight without Donald Trump. I know that everybody wants Donald Trump to carry every single election on his own back and carry everybody through the finish line, but they need to learn how to fight for themselves. And a lot of Republicans, as we know, they don't want to fight. They're not fighters because it's easier to raise money and complain when you're on the losing side and you can talk about how your country is being taken over by a bunch of communists. And so what's the option? If you don't want to fight, you sell out, right? If you can't beat them, join them. And I don't think that a lot of these people are confident in their own abilities to be effective leaders like Donald Trump. And so they're selling out to the radical left. They're trying to cover their ass, as we say, and guarantee their next paycheck because they know that if we lose, they're going to try to jail President Trump and his most loyal supporters. And these people don't have a backbone, so they're willing to completely sell out to the left. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene is on all of the Sunday shows and all of the primetime evening shows on the liberal media, MSDNC and CNN. I know that sounds a bit long-winded, but that's what you're witnessing right now. And a lot of it is being funded by foreign money. You think it's a coincidence, John, that Russia today is amplifying these movements from the groypers online, showing people saying, oh, I'm taking my red hat off and I'm putting my blue hat on? Could it be any more self-serving and obvious? Red to blue? Hello? These people aren't conservatives. These people don't care about America first. They're talking about isolationism, America only. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing right now. America only. You know what America only is going to do? It's going to usher in Chinese communist dominance, John, on a global scale. We're not an isolationist country. Show me where President Trump campaigned on being an isolationist. He never campaigned on being an isolationist. You can be America first and put America's interests first without completely cutting yourself off from every other country, seizing all trade agreements, seizing all communication with all other countries for the sake of pushing. And I'm going to call it this. This woke Reich, new Reich mentality. And I say Reich, yes, I'm saying Reich intentionally, because the rhetoric coming out of the mouth of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and her isolationist buddies who want to say you can't be a member of the new GOP unless you're white and Christian, okay? And if you're Jewish, you need to self-deport, get the hell out of our country, they say, get out of America, go back to Israel. That is rhetoric from the 1940s. That's not the GOP that I'm a member of, and that's not the GOP that President Trump represents.
Laura, how did Israel become such a lightning rod for this movement, for the Tucker Carlson? What is the genesis of this?
Look, I think a lot of it is foreign funded. Tucker Carlson, or Carlson as I like to call him, profusely denies this. He loves to suggest that I'm a foreign agent because I'm Jewish. Meanwhile, I don't have dual citizenship. I'm not Israeli. I'm an American. I've never put the interests of another country over the United States of America. There's a big difference between me and Tucker Carlson. You know what that is, John? My name isn't in Farah, but his name is. And you know what country shows up next to Tucker Carlson's name in Farah? Qatar. And when Tucker Carlson left Fox News or got fired, whatever the sob story is, you know, he says he got fired. We all saw the Dominion text messages where he says that he hates President Trump. He thinks he's the worst person in the world. He can't wait for Trumpism to be over. He just can't wait because he wants to hijack the GOP. It's pretty obvious that when Tucker Carlson went independent, he had to raise his own money to fund his media platform, the Tucker Carlson News Network. Well, where did he go to get all of his money? He started going on all of these very elaborate fundraising tours to Dubai. He went to Qatar. He went to Saudi Arabia. He got Omid Malik of 1789 Capital to give him $15 million. Omid Malik is half Iranian, half Pakistani. So, yeah, Tucker Carlson claims that he's since given back the $15 million that Omid gave him. But there's no denying the fact that Tucker Carlson's news network, when he left Fox News and became independent, was built upon Islamic money. So we know how the Iranians feel about the Jews. We know how the Iranians feel about Israel. It's not exactly rocket science, John. And it doesn't make sense. You cannot go from talking about how Israel is our greatest ally to, oh, we benefit greatly from our $3.8 billion investment in Israel every single year. Israel is a strategic ally. They're helping us combat global Islamic jihad, to then saying that every single issue in our country is because of Israel. Every single problem. You stepped on dog crap this morning, blame Israel. The economy's down, blame Israel. Open borders, blame Israel. I mean, what are we not going to blame on Israel at this point, right? It's almost a meme. It's almost a meme, John. And these people have induced a psychosis in the younger generation of America where they're trying to teach young people that they don't need to have accountability for their own actions, right? If they decide that they don't want to work hard, and I'm not saying that young people don't work hard. I understand that it's hard. It's hard. I mean, look, I want to be able to afford to buy a home as well. It's very hard to be able to purchase a home in today's economy. There's no denying that. But, you know, some people are not really honest with themselves. Are you really waking up as early as you should be waking up? Are you goal-oriented? Are you prioritizing your time? Are you putting your time where you need to spend your time to have the success that you want to have? A lot of people live in this social media reality where they see people online. They think they're going to have the sports car. They think they're going to live in a mansion. They think that everybody's going to be famous. Everybody's going to be a social media influencer, John. Not everybody's living in reality. And when you push this poison that Israel is to blame for everybody's issues, the Jews are to blame for everybody's issues, you're teaching people to not practice personal responsibility and accountability. And that creates resentment culture, which then transpires into political violence and crime. So I don't know if Tucker Carlson is intentionally trying to make young men turn into a bunch of nihilists so that, they hate their neighbor and, they preach 1940s rhetoric in America. I don't know what his end goal is. I don't understand why he can't just be happy with his life and his millions of dollars. But he seems hell-bent on trying to undermine President Trump, undermine our country. And it seems like he's hijacked J.D. Vance. I mean, look, I'm going to be totally honest. I really like J.D. Vance, but we have to call a spade a spade. Tucker Carlson seems to think that he's going to be J.D. Vance's campaign manager. He wants to attach himself to everything J.D. Vance. And I really like J.D. Vance. I hope that J.D. Vance has a lot of success and that he's the nominee in 2028. But I really think, and if he's listening now, I would say to J.D. Vance, Tucker Carlson is your number one liability. The GOP has a Tucker Carlson problem. The GOP has a Jew hate problem. They do, and they need to come to terms with it because it's going to explode in our faces come 2026, and it's going to explode on the national stage in 2028. So I hope that we see some moral clarity from the GOP soon, and I hope that we see, I'm not asking them to condemn Tucker Carlson, I'm not calling for anybody to be banned, but you can say Tucker Carlson is allowed to have his show. Tucker Carlson can interview whoever he wants to interview. However, we don't believe that Christian Zionists are the most evil people on planet Earth. We don't believe that Christian Zionists are more evil than communists and jihadists and illegal aliens. I really want to see some moral clarity on this issue from the White House and from President Trump and from J.D. Vance. And everybody can be happy. You can go spew your poison on your podcast. You can have whichever guest you want on. But we're not going to drag the GOP and our country into the pits of hell and neo-Nazism because people want to obsessively post and talk about Jews 24/7. We're just not going to do it, John.
Well, I thought it was unfortunate that Carlson put on that kid Nick Fuentes, who I think is a despicable, disgusting human being. I would never have anything to do with him. He had him on for an hour. Didn't really push back on anything, and then he puts it out there. What was the purpose of that? Clicks, right? Just clicks.
Who knows? Like I said, Tucker Carlson can platform whoever he wants. I agree with President Trump's statement the other day that Tucker Carlson can put on whoever he wants. That's fine. Tucker can do that. But Tucker also then doesn't need to be at the White House. Tucker also doesn't need to be advising the vice president. Exactly. Tucker Carlson also doesn't need to have such a presence in the White House. And people can say, oh, well, he doesn't have a presence in the White House. Trust me, he does, okay? And the more we deny this, the more of a problem it's going to be for our country. Tucker Carlson is constantly calling the White House, constantly trying to insert himself into the White House because he enjoys the fact that, and I'm not attacking his son when I say this, he enjoys the fact that his son works in the White House. And this is why I say the GOP has a Tucker Carlson issue. They say that we're not allowed to talk about Tucker Carlson's son because he's off limits and children are not guilty for the sins of their parents. Okay, I agree. So if that's the case, why is it that Tucker Carlson dedicated over 2 hours of his show to ambushing and viciously attacking David Milstein, the son of Mark Levin, who is currently working as the chief of staff to Ambassador Mike Huckabee in Israel? If we're going to say that the kids of administration officials or the kids of prominent GOP pundits are off limits, then let's be consistent. That's all I'm asking, because People are starting to realize that there's a double standard here. People are starting to realize, John, that you're not allowed to talk about one person's kid, but you're allowed to viciously abuse the other kid. And what's the difference between these two people? One of them wears a yarmulke and the other one doesn't. And so, you know, I think that these things are becoming more apparent. And like I said, the GOP can pretend like this problem doesn't exist all they want. They can pretend like we don't have a generation of young men who want to blame everything on Jews. They want to demonize blacks. They want to demonize Hispanics. They want to demonize women. I got news for you. We're not a majority white country anymore. We're not. You know, demographics are your destiny. And while I may wish that we were a majority white country, the reality is that we have over 65 million illegal aliens in our country, and we're just not a majority white country anymore. And so if the GOP is going to win elections, yes, they need to appeal to the frustrations of young white men who are discriminated against. And I'm not denying the fact that there is anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male rhetoric and an anti-white Christian movement in this country. But you also need to preserve the other coalitions that President Trump built, the Black coalition, the Hispanic coalition, the female coalition. You know who just delivered all of those wins in Virginia and New Jersey? Young women. Do you think that we're going to have success when you have amplification of, you know, the loudest voices? And again, it's their right to go on podcasts. I'm not calling for censorship. But when they say, oh, don't get married, getting married and having a relationship with women and having children is gay, screw women, women suck. Like, that's not going to win elections. That's not going to drive young women to the polls to vote Republican. If they feel like the best friend of officials sitting in the GOP are platforming these people that are going around blatantly using the N-word, okay? Calling Hispanic people, like, I can't even say these names because they're so derogatory, right? But we cannot be a party, and we cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that our party is being hijacked by dark forces. They call themselves conservatives. These young people want to call themselves conservatives who are preaching this 1940s-style rhetoric, John. You're not conservative. These people did not vote for President Trump in 2024. They're telling people to burn their MAGA hats. They're telling people to, you know, to just think about how much better off we would be if Kamala Harris was in the White House right now. You can have two things at the same time, and that's my message, John. We can have free speech. We don't need to have cancel culture, but we can also have moral clarity from the GOP saying this garbage has no place in the GOP. It doesn't.
Well,
these people don't even want to be in the GOP. They're on video saying it themselves. They say, I hate Donald Trump. They say he's fat. They think he's stupid. They think he's ugly. And you have to ask yourself the intentions of of Tucker Carlson, when he platforms an individual like this who is hell-bent on calling President Trump a pedophile and tells his supporters, young men, don't vote for President Trump and burn your MAGA hat. Like, what is Tucker Carlson trying to signal when he platforms somebody who says that their goal is to destroy Donald Trump? We need to start holding Tucker accountable.
And I think the fact that Tucker's son, and again, I've got 3 kids. I don't want to drag him into this, but, you know, his son is J.D. Vance's press secretary. He's not like just an analyst. He's his press secretary.
But he's deputy press secretary, yeah.
Deputy press secretary. I mean, it's got to be somewhat, you got to contemplate that when you're thinking about voting for this guy. And I agree with you. I mean, I like JD. I don't think that his nomination is fait accompli. He's got to get through Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. There's going to be a lot of good candidates there. We'll see what happens, Laura. Now let's go to Laura Loomer.
I like JD Vance a lot, but I'm just saying, as a word of advice, if he wants to be president, I think that I'm not saying that you have to condemn somebody. You know, this idea that, oh, we're not going to engage in cancel culture, it's such a cop-out to not have moral integrity. Like, that's just such a cop-out. When you say I'm not going to cancel somebody, that's a way to say you don't want to actually address the problem in the room. Yeah. I mean, the people that JD Vance are trying to associate themselves with JD Vance, Tucker Carlson, of course, that's who I'm referring to. He's platforming people that are attacking JD's children and his wife because his wife is Indian and his kids are brown. I mean, is that really what we're going to tolerate? Do we want to have a GOP presidential debate where a bunch of racist kids show up and they start screaming insults at J.D. Vance because his wife is not a Christian and his wife is brown? And yes, that did happen. That just really happened at the recent Turning Point event, and nobody pushed back on it. So, you know, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Why are we letting our party get hijacked by people who want to destroy MAGA and want to usher in a state of nihilism in America? What does that do for anybody? What does a bunch of nihilistic, isolationist people running around our country do for America and American greatness?
Well, it doesn't do anything for the midterms, and that's all I'm focused on right now. Speaking of midterms, is Laura Loomer going to move to Georgia mountains and run against Marjorie Taylor Greene in the May primary in Georgia?
No, as much fun as I have, you know, teasing the idea, because look, I mean, she's obviously run her course. Okay, she can go become a professional daytime trader outside of Congress when she's not getting paid by our tax dollars. Okay, I'm not moving to Georgia. I have no desire to run for Congress again. I ran for Congress. I have no desire to be in office. I'm going to be focused on helping the Republicans ahead of the midterms and doing what I can to support President Trump, and again, just doing my investigative reporting. But I hope somebody primaries her.
Well, I'm going to need your help in Virginia, no doubt about it, as we try to beat back this scam they're trying to take 4 seats away. Look, we're going to have you on every week. You're an important voice. I happen to agree with you on everything. And you were right. We did have a debate back in 24, and you told me this was going to happen. And I was very focused on just winning that election. But you predicted this coming breakup way before I did. So you nailed that, as always. Laura, people want to follow you on social media. Where do they go?
Just follow me on X at Laura Loomer. Follow me on X at Laura Loomer and Loomer Unleashed. We just busted up the Marjorie Taylor Greene press conference about Jeffrey Epstein, so videos coming soon. If you want to see those videos, head on over to my X account.